So a quick overview in terms of African Business Chamber. So it's the UK business organization representing Black and African businesses and entrepreneurs within the UK. So we are the collective voice of the business in terms of, so our main mission and objective, of course, based in Birmingham, is to act as the voice and advocate for the business community across the UK, representing their views and interests and priority to the government and the media, and also champion member success and provide support for continued growth and development through various activities, including international trade, market insight, knowledge development, access to resources, also encourage and foster climate favorable to entrepreneurship, and finally, to continue work with our partners in terms of conducting study, research, and development on enterprise and entrepreneurship so that we can continue provide more informed guidance. So, and the activities mainly we're doing and some of we hope to do is mainly hosting networking events, expo, award, and information brief like this one, training masterclass and seminars to help our members improve their operation capabilities and skills and knowledge, provide with business advisory support, especially in this current crisis. We are working with various members, helping them to understand the current situation and help them realign with their strategy, their operation, and various business aspects. And also dissemination of information through newsletter, magazine, and also market research survey. We're currently conducting a national UK business survey, trying to capture information in terms of the experience of the business as a result of the current crisis, and also informing the various local authorities and organizations some of the challenges and the support requirement. So the business survival series we're currently hosting weekly webinar designed to support the business community, providing the latest update, announcement, continuity, practical tips and insight and perspective, and also guidance in terms of how to manage the current crisis, build resilience, risk, address the challenges, and also adapt to reposition with the right strategy, turn some of the opportunities, of course, out of disruption. There's also opportunities to help some of businesses to grow and eliminate some of the function within the businesses that are not profitable to make sure that they maintain a healthy cash flow. So those are some of the focus in terms of the business survival series. So today, the focus is on business continuity and the management in crisis. And to the agenda, some of the questions we hope to be answering is mainly we look at the impact on the business today and come up, so our business speakers will help us to answer some of the questions in terms of some of the survival strategies, what are the critical risk function and the activity to look for in a business, what are the effective response and short-term priorities or action, and also how do we create growth opportunity in a fast-moving environment. So looking to see how we can create opportunity through disruption, innovation, and creativity. So to help me answer some of these questions, sorry, there's a bit, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, there's an echo.
There's an echo somewhere, let me tell you. Okay. There's an echo somewhere, let me tell you. Okay. Please, if you have your mic or your
there's still an echo. Eugene, you can just mute all of us.
Yes, I'm muting everybody to stop the echo. It looks like someone has a microphone on. Sorry. Sorry about that. These are some of the challenges we are trying to get used to, especially in terms of the new norm. So working from home is not easy. These are some of the interruptions we get on a very day to day, but we hope with time we're going to perfect it. So sorry about that. So to help me answer some of those questions and also help us to inform us in terms of the latest experience and update in the market, I'm delighted to be joined with some of our panel experts. From the left, we have Amaechi, who's the head of Africa Business Group and Energy from Thornton, and is also board member for IOD. Second, we have Daniela Jenner. She's an experienced business consultant on strategy and innovation, the founder of She's the Boss International, and also business advisor for Enterprise Europe Network. And third, we have Washington. Washington, are you on the line? I think he was trying to join, probably he hasn't managed to join in. So we have Washington, also is the executive chairman of African Procurement Group, managing director of Tech Capital, and chairman for Association for African-Owned Enterprises, which is another group also support African businesses. And we have also Dennis Aguma, who is our partner at SSCG on enterprise and innovation, and also a lecturer at Birmingham City University doing research on entrepreneurship ecosystem. And finally, we have Kanayo, who's the director for Sinnergy and also one of our director for business development at the African Business Chamber. Help me to welcome them. And of course, I'm not going to do much introduction. I'll let them take the stage, probably start with Amaechi, to introduce themselves and also give us or shed some light in terms of how the current situation has disrupted or transformed the business as the usual, what highlighting some of the challenges and the situation at the moment. Amaechi, welcome and help us to introduce yourself and also give us some light in terms of what the current situation.
Hi, thanks Eugene, and thank you all for joining this webinar on survival strategies, which is very relevant in the current climate that we are faced with. As it says on my bio, I head up the Africa Business Group at Thornton, one of the global leading consulting, auditing, and tax advisory firms. I also head up energy and natural resources, which fits in very well with the Africa landscape. In terms of what my skill set is, it centers around restructuring, refinancing debts, and also assets recovery. My other role, which is relevant for discussions at this time with entities and people, businesses trying to survive, is that I'm a board member at the Institute of Directors in the UK. The Institute of Directors is appointed by Royal Charter to look after and promote and protect the interests of businesses in the UK. So in terms of what I do, governance is very important. IOD, and also in the African context. I can come back to why we're in the call, why what we have to say is very relevant in terms of what we're facing. But the key thing for everyone to note is that what we're faced with is unprecedented. Nobody knows how bad it's going to get. Nobody knows when we're going to be at a point where there's going to be a recovery. But there's something that hasn't changed over the last couple of years, really, given where the world has been going. I think something that's quite clear is that we've been living in a world that's very volatile. We've been living in a world that's very uncertain, very complex, and very ambiguous. So those four things have really all rolled into one in a perfect storm in terms of what we're faced with COVID-19. And when we come to talk about survival strategies, it all comes down to cash, because without cash, no business out there, and nobody out there can survive. So I can share some more thoughts later on some strategies for preserving cash and for generating cash in the current climate. But in terms of introduction, I wanted to leave it there and pass over to someone else to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Amaechi, for that short, brief introduction in terms of what you do and your background. Probably we'll get to hear more about your work and the current situation as we answer some of those questions. But let me go straight to our next speaker, Daniela, to also welcome her to introduce herself and also tell us briefly in terms of her career background and also how it has been disrupted or transformed by the current crisis, and what are some of the challenges and the implications. Daniela, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It kind of says it all on the bio, really. So at the moment, I am wearing a number of hats. I am a senior business advisor at Enterprise Europe Network, working on a program called Innovate to Succeed. I've been working on that program since 2018, supporting small to medium-sized enterprises across the whole of the Midlands with innovation and growth programs. Not sector specific, so I've been working with service and product businesses across a wide range of industries and sectors. In terms of She's the Boss, I provide consultancy, coaching and mentoring services to, again, SMEs, but also startups, primarily but not exclusively women and those from ethnic minority backgrounds, particularly working on helping them to build profitable, sustainable systems-led businesses that are not reliant on the founder of the business. In terms of background, I previously ran 2 separate businesses, one which I sold, one I was bought out of by my business partner. I have an MBA from Aston Business School, specializing in advanced topic strategy and innovation. And it was doing the MBA following the sale of my first business that led me down the road of becoming a consultant. I kind of had all of the business experience from running the business from the 8 years, but I wanted something to give me more of a theoretical kind of grounding, which Aston, through their MBA program, enabled me to do. So I finished that in 2017, was providing coaching and consultancy prior to that under my first business, but in a much more kind of ad hoc, pay-as-you-go kind of way. I've developed my own methodologies to help businesses that I use both under the She's the Boss brand and with the work that I do with Enterprise Europe Network. In terms of the current situation, because I have quite a large caseload of businesses at various different stages of their kind of business entrepreneurial journey, I am seeing the differences between the businesses that are thriving during this period and those that are really struggling and aren't progressing. So I'm happy to share some of my insights after everybody else has introduced themselves. Oh, can't hear anything.
Hello. Oh, sorry, I was on the mute. Oh, thank you for that brief introduction, and good to have you and to hear some of the work you are doing and also the supporting the business in the community. So let me take this also the opportunity to welcome our third speaker, Washington. Washington, nice to see you. Hope you can hear me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome. Please give a bit of introduction in terms of what you do. I can see you do quite a lot of things within the business space. Please just give us a bit of insights in terms of how the situation has disrupted your business as usual and how you are coping with the current climate at the moment.
Well, I'll quickly introduce myself very briefly. My name is Washington Kapapiro. I'm the chairman for the Association for African-Owned Enterprises, the president for the Global Africa Business Club. Professionally, I'm the executive chairman for a company called Africa Procurement Group. And we're in the process of fundraising for our own private equity fund called Sema Capital. I'll share most of my experiences around the work I'm doing with APG, Africa Procurement Group. With the current situation, we've been witnessing what I'd like to term the Third World War. Never has the world experienced such a crisis where the whole world has had to come to a stop. Well, it's only happened twice, and that's in the world wars. And that's how we've approached it, and that's how it's attacked our business. We're a procurement agency. We're active across 34 African countries. We've got offices in 6 countries around the world. I'm actually in South Africa right now. We've got an office here. We've got an office in Ghana. We've got an office in Botswana. We've got an office in New York, and we've got an office in Dubai. And we've got, I would say, probably 8 consignments around the world that couldn't move because of the crisis and all the lockdowns that happened. We're proactively providing commodities to international companies that want to source commodities from Africa. And I would say 95% of our clients aren't ordering or doing any business right now. So we've really, initially we felt the pinch, but I would say that we've experienced an economic renaissance during this Third World War. We've created a niche for ourselves where through our reputation, we've been able to help a lot of the governments in the SADC region to try fight the crisis. I think what we want to do as a company is to continue what we're best at, and that's procurement. And in this crazy season, it's been very difficult to procure certain commodities or certain PPE, as they call them, or specialist services. And that's what we've been able to continue, or we've started to do during this Third World War. So that's just a snapshot of what we do. In social enterprise, rather, I've previously had the privilege of advising Barack Obama's administration. We developed the Africa Diaspora Engagement Program. I host a lot of my events at the House of Lords when I'm in London, with the patronage of Lord Sheikh. And a lot of the work that we've done has just been around raising the profile of Africans in business, primarily in the UK. And secondly, what we want to do is to see African entrepreneurs enter the mainstream. And I think that a lot of African businesses have been operating under the shadows. We've found a lot of companies that have been doing the smaller SMEs, micro business stuff. But we want to see more companies enter the mainstream. Through our Global Africa Business Club, we believe that if Africa is ever going to realize the potential for economic development, we need to see the emergence of internationally recognized African brands. And that's what we're promoting at the moment. I've worked with the African Union to help launch the AU passports for African entrepreneurs that want to be able to trade across the continent. And with new initiatives that are being launched across the continent, I think this is the prime time for African businesses to enter the mainstream, to enter the big stage. And I think that's what we're going to see if the African business people are willing to take that initiative through this economic renaissance that's been brought about by this Third World War, that is COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Washington, for that insight in terms of some of the global activity you're doing, and it's quite amazing. And unfortunately, the lockdown, you are not the only one affected. There's quite a lot of businesses which have been hit badly. Today, I was on a discussion with the Oxford University. We are talking about UK GDP falling by 35%, which is a huge drop in terms of the GDP, and we are likely to see the labor market fell by 15%. So there's huge numbers they are already predicting in terms of what will be the impact of this crisis. Some of the numbers are shocking. So before I go into detail, but let me ask the next speaker, Dennis Aguma, also to introduce himself and also give us a bit of overview of some of the work he's been doing, looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem within the UK and how shed some insight in how the situation has disrupted the ecosystem overall.
Thank you very much, Eugene, my co-panelists, and whoever is listening out there. My name is Dennis Oguma. I'm a partner with SSCG Consulting with Eugene. I focus mainly on the innovation and enterprise development side of things. I'm also a co-chair of the One Africa Network, which organizes similar events, and I'm a board member as well of the African Chamber, which is the auspices under which we are gathered today. Outside of that, I'm a visiting lecturer at Birmingham City University. I teach mainly on enterprise and entrepreneurship, but my PhD research is also around entrepreneurial ecosystems, and mainly I'm doing comparative studies between the UK and sub-Saharan Africa, and I'm already beginning to see interesting findings in terms of the structural and dynamic challenges that these two different economies are having to grapple with regards to COVID-19. Prior to coming to academia, my work was mainly with startups, business incubation centers, both here in the UK, but also in Africa, in Uganda mainly. So my work with startups, entrepreneurs, innovators, you're essentially dealing at the back end of business ideas, of businesses coming to light. So for me, I wouldn't say I'm excited, but I'm in that category of people who are optimistic in terms of this kind of disruption. It's going to throw up all sorts of new opportunities. It's going to force business as usual to rethink what's actually happening. We're already seeing that happening in terms of remote working, in terms of video conferencing like this. So I'm quite on the optimistic side that not this, I'm not belittling or disregarding the economic impact that this is going to have, the challenge that this has had on people's lives. We need to get out of this alive first and foremost. So I'm not in any way belittling all that. I'm mindful of that. But on the other flip side, it's like a double-edged sword, and economies that are going to focus mainly on this rebirth are going to come out much better and much faster. So I'm in that category of people. So I'm excited to see what's actually happening with what innovators and entrepreneurs are doing to adapt to this new normal. Back to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Dennis, for that brief introduction. So, and we hope to hear a bit more later on. So let me go to our final speaker, Kanayo, and welcome Kanayo also to give a bit of introduction and also give us a brief in terms of the insight of his world and how the situation has disrupted business as usual.
Thanks, Eugene. And hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. In the interest of time, I'm just going to spend probably a minute or so introducing myself. I won't go into a lot of details. We'll discuss all that when we get to that. I'm Kanayo Eruchalu, and I run a company called Sinnergy. What do we do? Sinnergy is a digital transformation advisory services company. So we help our clients to adopt technology as part of their innovation or growth expansion strategy. We've been doing this will be 10 years in October, and we help predominantly. We've always helped predominantly large enterprises, but we have recently moved into the SME space. We've been in SME space for since 2017-18. And we focus on, like I said, digitization. So that includes understanding gaps they have within their business systems, and then helping them to plug those gaps by adopting technology. Where technology can help the most, I think, is systemizing, putting systems in place, processes, and then automating them. And where possible, helping them to optimize those processes as well. so that they can achieve one of several things, including improving their productivity, reducing their operating costs, and then increasing top line and bottom line numbers as well. Back to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Kanayo, and welcome everybody. So let's just go to the next question, if I can get. So the next question, in the interest of all the people on the line, of course, we have a good representation of audience globally on all major social media. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, and also on Zoom. So in the interest of the business listening to us now, who are keen to understand key takeaway, what they can do to survive, from the speaker, what would be the critical risk function or business activity that as an entrepreneur, business leader would look for, or what will be the effective crisis response, thinking short term and of course not forgetting long term as the economy recover? What will be your advice or your perspective in terms of what things to look for, or which area of the function they should be tackling in terms of to make sure they maintain their cash flow for survival? I'll probably start with Amaechi.
Hi everyone. Well, in terms of what businesses should be doing right now, well, the answer is quite a lot. I do actually admire the enthusiasm that's shown by lots of people, especially entrepreneurs at this time, and you know, looking forward to COVID-19 being over, so we can kickstart and you know, heading towards growth. But in the meantime, I'm quite fearful, I think is the word I will use, and very cautious about the dangers that lie ahead, because not since the Great Depression, all those hundreds of years ago, how many years ago that was, that the Great Depression happened, have we been faced with this situation where people are talking about every single nation around the world going into recession. So businesses out there need to be focused on three things, and these are going to be very high level, and the rest of the panel might want to go into the granular detail later on. But the three things I think businesses need to be focused on: number one, making sure that you have the right strategy in place. So that's very, very big picture, high level. Do you have the right strategy? Secondly, making sure your operations are fit for purpose. So operationally, are your businesses well structured, well positioned in terms of how you operate? And then thirdly, it always comes down to cash. Is the financial aspect of it, making sure you have enough cash in the bank. So in summary, I'll say three things to focus on right now: strategy, operations, and finances.
Oh. How about Daniela? What's your thought on the question? Oh.
So I would like to start by saying I kind of mirror what I think it was Dennis said before about feeling quite optimistic, and again, not to negate the real issue that is at hand and the fact that people are losing people, but from an entrepreneurial perspective, it is quite an exciting time to be able to look at innovation and how we can use this moment in time that, as has been said, is unprecedented, to start looking at how can we do business differently. So speaking specifically from a kind of small to medium-sized enterprise perspective, some of the key things that I've been suggesting to the clients that I work with to focus on is a situational analysis first and foremostly. So there's certain things that are happening now that are outside of our control. We can't do anything about it, but there's lots of things that are within our control that we can work upon. So from my experience, a lot of the kind of smaller businesses don't have systems and processes in place, don't look at risk management, don't always spend enough time cash flow forecasting. Now is a great time to sit down as a small business owner or medium-sized business owner and really get your head around those things. So I've been doing a lot of systems and process mapping with the clients that I work with. I've been doing risk management. For a lot of businesses, it's just business as usual up until it cannot be anymore. And now we're in this position. There was no risk management. There was no risk plan for them to be able to start to put in place. Nobody could have predicted a global pandemic. I think that unless you have some sort of futuristic powers, it's not possible. However, if businesses had spent enough time risk planning different scenarios, then when this situation had arisen, there were certain continuity strategies that would have been able to be put in place. So not to cover every problem, but for example, people taking staff from within an office space or a factory or something, and then putting them on remote working. A lot of businesses had no clue how to do that because they hadn't ever considered the possibility that staff wouldn't be able to work in their office. So now is a great time, I think, to sit and focus on risk planning for the future. I would like to echo what Amaechi said about strategy. So sitting and looking at what is your strategy for getting through this period. Again, for a lot of the small businesses, the recommendation I've been making is how can you pivot? So if you are offering a product or service that you're no longer able to offer during this period, how can you add value to your customers or your clients in a different way? Can you create new products? Can you create new services that is going to either be able to be launched now that you can generate some income from, or can you start planning and doing research for you to launch once this period is over, which hopefully it will be. And during this interim period, can you be nurturing prospects so that by the time this period is over, you're able to get kind of quick and immediate sales. The systems and processes bit as well, I think is really very important. When you're in the operational phase of running your business on a day-to-day basis, as a business owner, you can be very busy. You don't necessarily have time to sit down and map out systems and processes. This is a great time to do that, to look at how you can increase efficiencies, how can you be more productive moving forward. And if you have a team, making sure that you're involving the team in that process. And when we look at innovation, also making sure that the team is involved in that. People are sitting at home. Some people are bored. I'm not bored. I've got a lot of work to do. But some people are bored, and involving people in a process of coming up and generating new ideas that could be beneficial for the business, now is a great time to do that. One of the key things that has been very interesting to me is prior to this point, there was an issue with a lot of the small businesses that I've interacted with of them not wanting staff working from home and not trusting that staff are going to be doing things at home. But everybody is now working from home and we have to trust them. What systems and processes have been put in place prior, or what can be put in place now to ensure that staff are being supported during this period, are being encouraged to come up with new ideas. And because of this, those new ideas, previously, if somebody had come up with an idea of let's do all of our meetings remotely, people would have laughed and said that's ridiculous. But clearly we're here doing it and it's working. So are there any other ideas that you can tap into your employees' minds to get them to start thinking outside of the box? Because actually once this is over, the world of business is going to operate very differently. How do you get ahead of that so that you're at the forefront of the whole, I suppose, what we're going to say, rebirth of business once the lockdown is over? I hope that makes sense. And I wasn't waffling on too much.
No, totally makes sense, and it's good you pointed out the opportunities coming up from the remote economy. Of course, these are the talk every business are looking in terms of how do they engage their employees working from home, and of course when we recover, this will be an opportunity now, but also it won't give an excuse for the employers to refuse people to work from home. If they've approved now that they can still achieve the same performance and be able to achieve the same objective working from home, supported during this crisis, probably that will be an opportunity for business to have a hybrid kind of operation, office and the home-based. So thank you for that. I think Washington, what's your thought on in terms of what are the key things businesses should look for in terms of to help them navigate the current crisis in the short term, and also, of course, keeping into perspective the long term to help them recover?
Well, my thoughts are, mine, I think I'm a little bit cavalier. I think that right now, I've just heard mention now of thinking outside the box. I think that the whole damn box has been ruined now. There's no more box. I think we're at a stage where it's time for innovation. I think every human being has this one idea in their mind, whether you're running a business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a professional. And we all have this one idea, one thought in our mind. And that thought of something that we'd love to do, or how we'd love to take our business to another dimension, another level. Right now, the whole universe has been set, like the reset button has been pressed. So we're at a stage in history that's unprecedented. It's never happened before. It's happened a few times. We know in 2008, a lot of new companies were born that we rely on today. I think WhatsApp was born in 2008 in that recession, etc., etc. Uber, I think, was 2008 also, and a few others. We are in a situation in history where we're allowed to be children again in business. We're allowed to think about something new again. We imagine this. According to South Africa's top doctor, the peak of the coronavirus is going to be around September. And we've got between now and September to come up with any thoughts and any new ideas we want to come up with. Remember, if there's one person who's left with coronavirus in the country, that's all it takes for that epidemic, the pandemic, to start again. So we're looking at a long space of time between now and when we're going to be able to say life has gone back to what we know it to be. And even if we say, okay, the lockdown that's been proposed by Boris Johnson is another X amount of days, let's be realistic. There's no way that can be resolved by then. Because like I said, you only need one person with coronavirus for the pandemic to start again. The last count that I looked at, UK deaths was over 10,000, or I think was circa 11,000 or more. And it's just affecting the country and the world at large. I saw the video and the footage of what's happening in Ecuador. It's terrible. And it's only in a time like this where business can press a reset button. Do we realize that whatever people are looking for, what they were looking for before, it's going to change after this? Do we realize that if our consumer trends were leaning towards one thing, after this virus, we don't know what the consumer trends will be looking at or pointing at or leaning towards. So it's time for innovation. We need to find new ways to make those little ideas that we have in our minds germinate. We need to be bold enough in this period when most of us are sat at home watching Netflix. We need to break our barriers, our boundaries. I call it borderless thinking. What can you imagine if you've got no boundaries, if you've got no restrictions, if anything you want to do is a possibility all of a sudden? And that's where we are right now in history. Yeah. In our existence, most of us haven't encountered this in the same degree and to the same level we're encountering it right now. And I suspect that for the next 5 to 10 years, there are going to be business opportunities that are going to be specifically created by this pandemic. All of a sudden, wearing face masks might be fashionable because it might mean you living and you dying. It might be now fashionable to set up online platforms such as this, and that's going to create business opportunities. In our conventional businesses, what were we doing before? What can we change? How is everyone in the world going to perceive business interaction after this? Because all of a sudden, everyone's forced to interact online. Before, this conference would have been done in Holborn or in somewhere amazing, at Oxford. But now we're doing it online. Geographically, I'm not on the same continent as you right now.
Yeah.
And we're still doing this online. So we need to understand that if we're going to try and hold on to old business ideas and try to think outside the box, we might be left behind. And if you want to be on the right side of history right now, you've got to try and think beyond what we've known, because what's coming, the new phase, the new era that's coming ahead of us, no one knows, and it's up to us to charter it. So that's my thoughts. I think in terms of sustainability, I think businesses need to understand that if you are not looking to adapt to the situation now, and you think this is a 2-week program or a 3-week program, 1 month, and we're going to go back to what we were doing before, you've got a rude awakening coming ahead. You know, as I said, we are preparing until the end of the year. So we know that if we don't generate money now, if we don't find something that's going to pay now, or if we find something and it's not working, and if in a month's time, if we don't find revenue, we might sink.
Absolutely.
So that's where I just want to encourage us that let's not really focus. I mean, this is my thinking, and I'm not saying that anyone else needs to follow this, but let's not focus on how we did things before. Let's anticipate a new world, and that's what this Third World War is giving birth to.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Of course, I agree with you with some of the things. Even me from my side, for example, I've managed to do quite a lot of things in the last 3 weeks working from home. Things I could have done in a year. So I'm actually more busier than normally the normal business as usual, because now you don't have waste time on meetings, and I'm even now able to schedule global meetings. We're running quite a lot of webinar looking about the impact on the African economy. These are some of the plans we've been trying to do for years, but people are not receptive in terms of virtual engagement. And of course, it's good to one thing you mentioned also is as an opportunity for business to take a step back, looking at some of their activities to eliminate non-added value, because in a normal circumstances, you see business just go on as usual. You're just accumulating a lot of functions, services, products, which actually do not add value. They are not profitable. They are just there, or you are accumulating a lot of assets that do not add any value to the business. So it's a good opportunity to relook some of the things. Let me ask Kanayo and Dennis to give their perspective. Just in the interest of time, let's be a bit quicker in terms of how for our answers, so that we can be able to also take a few questions from the audience.
Thanks, Eugene. I'll try and summarize mine. I categorize them into three. There are three key aspects. This actually reminds me of Tijan Jam in 2016, when he said that the single most important thing in life is not to die. First, you stay alive, then you can think about the future and evaluate. So this is very important, not just for us as individuals, making sure that we stay alive, but also for business. The first phase is really going to be about survival. And I agree with, I think it was Washington who highlighted the aspect of cash. Cash is going to be very key, because it's the number one biggest kill of most businesses. They run out of cash. And cash right now is that's why governments are pumping a lot of money just to keep businesses afloat. So survival is going to be very important, especially for lots of businesses. They need to find ways of eliminating waste, the kind of things you don't need to do. By all means, make sure you don't do them. I was at another panel, I think a week or so ago, when I was advising some businesses to, if, for instance, your rent or your lease is coming up to be renewed, do you really need to get into that lease for the next 2-3 years? So eliminate things that you don't need to be doing, because the focus right now is on survival. But don't stay in the survival mode for far too long, because then you need to also go back within your team, review what you've been doing. This idea of we've always done this, it's always worked. This thinking outside the box is no more. I totally agree. Businesses will need to look at their products and services, their processes, especially now with the way we've been exposed to technology, because traditionally businesses have not been very keen to innovate radically, but now they don't have a choice, they've been forced. So there's an opportunity to review virtually everything, even the ones that you didn't need to. So there is that phase of reviewing, but once you're outside of that phase, or once you're even in that phase of reviewing, the idea is to be very radical. Just to quote my favorite economist or entrepreneur, Joseph Schumpeter, with his radical innovation, creative disruption. What's happened in the past with startups and entrepreneurs, the likes of Google, the likes of Facebook, the likes of Airbnb, the likes of Uber and others, they've essentially disrupted industries, but they've been deliberate about it. This time, there is a new opportunity for all businesses to go back and look at their business models, not the business plans, but their business models, your value propositions. What were you selling to your customers? How were you selling that to your customer? How is your customer behavior right now? Is the customer still buying? Do they still need your product in the first instance? So could you twist and change a few of the things that you've done in the past to tailor them for this kind of the new normal? So there's going to be three kind of phases. The first one is by all means defend and survive. The next one is to review whatever's been happening, and while you're at it, be optimistic. Imagine you are starting your business, launching it from the ground with no encumbrances of what you've done in the past. What could you do differently if you were to take on any industry right now? Be radical in your thought process. So those are the three areas I would focus on. Over to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Dennis. And Kanayo, what's your thought?
So I'm going to try not to repeat what any other person has said. So all the speakers have given actually very fantastic suggestions on what needs to happen from different standpoints. If I could add anything to that, it would be the fact that the way I look at a business as from a functional perspective, every business has 4 core functions. 1, you have to get the business. 2, you have to do the business. 3, you have to run the business. 4, you have to build the business. So those are the 4 key areas in any business. In this current crisis, as we've noted, what's going to happen is fight or flight. A lot of businesses are, because it's a crisis mode, they're going to try to operate in a crisis mode, which means a lot of them will start shutting down and will bury their heads in the sand. And what I'm advising my clients to do is to do the exact opposite, is to keep focusing on systems building. But in a recession, the focus should be on, in addition to some of the things that Dennis has said, but the focus should be on getting the business. Now, one would say that because everybody is at home, there's a lockdown, there's hardly any business happening, and I completely disagree. I'm having more meetings now than I've had pre-COVID-19, when everybody was very busy. I'm having more, some of my clients as well are having more conversations that will lead to new business as soon as we get out of this. So my one advice to all businesses, all SMEs, is now is the time to build systems, but particularly now is the time to build your marketing and sales systems. Now, there are some core definite things that we need to be doing. A lot of it can be done online. So if you haven't got a lot by way of digital marketing put in place, now is the time to build all those kind of systems. If you haven't got a lot of strategic partnerships in place, now is the time to start building those relationships. If you haven't invested in referral marketing, now is the time to start investing in referral marketing systems, which will include referrals from your clients, obviously your best clients, referrals from other business contacts, referrals from your suppliers, referrals from your network. Now is the time to put collaborations in place. A lot more businesses, SMEs or large corporates are looking for opportunities, because we're all in the same boat, so to speak. So now is the time where people are more open to certain kind of conversations. But obviously, like the rest of the panel has said, what key key thing to look out for is reduce your overhead, raise cash, because cash is king, build your war chest, and then go to war. Thank you, Eugene.
Yeah. Thank you so much I think in the interest of time, I'm going to combine the last question with a few questions that has just popped out from the audience. So in thinking of innovation in a fast moving, changing world, how can we create new opportunity for growth? But also there's a question I think is for Daniela and Amaechi, who mentioned about strategic planning. And I kind of connect with this question because recently I've been working with some of my clients. We had to take a lot of step back in terms of strategic planning, because at the moment we don't know even tomorrow. You can't plan when you don't know when the next week look like. So majority of our clients had to cancel all future plan. The war went into crisis mode, and so strategy went out of the window in terms of, and also for those who mentioned about process mapping, at the moment, especially if you're in manufacturing on those businesses that you are doing cross-border business where you're relying on overseas supply and all those, some of the supply are already shut down on those. How can you do a process mapping, CPOC, input, output, when you don't have reliability in who are your suppliers, if they are going to deliver? So we have a lot of risk uncertainty. So business don't like uncertainty. So planning and the process mapping at the moment is not realistic. We're seeing major headlines every day. How can we plan, do strategy, do process, and also innovate in a fast changing world? I don't know, Amaechi, if you...
Hi, sorry, it's Amaechi. So I think the key thing to do, right, in terms of, I'm going to be very brief because I know we're running out of time.
Yes. 2
points to mention. The first point is that you should always have a strategy, no matter what's going on around you as a business. Even if your strategy is to survive and be alive for the post-COVID-19 period, that should be your strategy. So every business needs to have some form of strategy in place. In terms of the tools, I think are most relevant now, given the level of uncertainty that's out there. I think running scenario planning and running some contingency planning exercises are what's possibly the most important things that are available to you out there. There are various things that could happen. There are about 3 or 4 scenarios, from a quick recovery to reinfections later on in the year to this thing going on for a couple of years. You need to run those scenarios and run them through your cash flows to ensure that under every scenario, you've got a plan to survive and to be here when the post-COVID-19 period starts.
Thank you for clarifying your point. Thank you.
How about, yeah, I wanted to be brief because I think Daniela's got something to add on the whole strategy. Yeah.
Well, you actually said what I was going to say. So essentially, we don't know how this is going to pan out. We don't know when the end is. So the advice I would always give is create the strategy based on the worst case scenario. So scenario planning is key. What is going to happen if this does continue for another year? What is the strategy for that? What happens if it finishes in September, we're allowed out for a bit, and then it starts again in January? Look at the different scenarios and what is your business going to do in terms of strategy based on each individual scenario. So I'm currently, my strategy is business as usual because I deliver like 80% of what I do online anyway. Prior to this, I haven't really been that badly impacted. However, what I'm considering is the people that normally pay me, if they're being impacted, at some point my money may start to dry up. So I'm looking at strategies of how do I get around that. In terms of systems and processes, if you're dealing with companies that are outside your remit and you don't know what they're doing, you can't obviously map that. But what you can do is look at what your business is doing in-house, internally, whether that be in your own house or online. You can map those things. You can also start mapping for when this is potentially over. As I said, I am quite optimistic that at some point we are going to resume some level of normality. It may not be what we knew previously, but hopefully we'll be allowed out of the house. So start mapping from now so that once we are allowed out of the house, your team can can go and understand and have something for them to look at and refer to help them start moving quickly. And I think a lot of the time, business owners just expect the team to just know what they're supposed to do. And actually, here's a great time to really make sure that the quality is good, that the efficiency is high, by sitting and mapping it all out. And then once we get back to normal, making sure that everybody's up to date on that.
Okay. Dennis, what's your thought? And Kanayo,
I concur with Amaechi, Daniela, and most of the speakers. The only thing I would add is, and I see a lot of this as a researcher looking at entrepreneurial ecosystems, every ecosystem is unique. I mean, the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Birmingham, if you map it, it's different from the one in London. Whereas someone in Uganda might look at the UK and say, this is how the UK is. The decisions that you're going to need to survive in various ecosystems, various regions, especially for multinational businesses, are going to be different. If you look at the quarantine and you're mapping out scenarios, if you look at what's happening in the US, what's happening in Italy, what's happening in the UK, and you compare that with what's happening in, again, I will use the example of Uganda, where they have only, say, 53 or so cases, but they're still under quarantine, which is a different story from South Africa. So you have to have different strategies for different scenarios. And for most businesses, you might find that you have like several types of customers. So you might want to have a number of scenarios for each of those things. So it's easier said than done, but the businesses are best placed to appreciate that. They are the ones who know what their customer segmentation is. But information is going to be very important. The other thing that's going to be very important for any business right now is information data. Information is being thrown around every single day. The scenarios are changing every single day. Governments are catching up and having to make decisions literally on a daily basis. And if you look at the UK government, the minister, the chancellor keeps bringing up policy after policy. So the decisions, the things that you thought were going to work last week, now you have government talking about a new category of people that are going to be supported. So this, you have to have a lot of information, and you're chasing, it's a moving target, so to speak. So information is going to be key, but not all decisions that are made in one ecosystem are going to be appropriate in another. So, and I will leave different business managers to make those judgment calls.
Kanayo, what's your thought? And Washington said we can wrap up. It looks like we've run out of time.
So I think the only thing to that is quite simply put, do the things that are within your control. So there are things that are within your control. So that whole thing about circle of influence versus circle of concern. Now, within your circle of influence are the things that you can do. And I think I already highlighted it. There are so many things that a business can do. However, I believe that right now there are two core things that any business should be focusing on. So you can do the scenario planning, you can do the contingency planning, situational analysis, and all of that. But it boils down to two things, in my opinion. One, you need to find access to cash. So improve your cash flow as much as possible. If there are fundings available, government is, at least the UK government, is making funds available to small businesses in particular. If you can access it, by all means, try and access as much as you can right now within reason. And then secondly, once you have that, put together a marketing strategy and plan for the coronavirus or COVID-19 period, based on the scenario planning that you've done and situation analysis and all the contingency planning that you've done. Those are my two advices. And then treat it as business as usual. It's just a different way of working, but I can assure you, I do know, and we haven't got time, but I could have gone into that. I know businesses who are thriving as a result of COVID-19.
Yeah. Okay. We've run out of time, but let me just give 1 minute summary for each speaker to say what's the key takeaway to summarize to the audience in terms of what what would be your 1 minute summary? Maybe let me start with Amaechi, and then we go the same way.
Yeah, my 1 minute summary, I think in the interest of time, I can actually summarize in 30 seconds. Just to repeat everything we just said earlier, unprecedented times should present some opportunities to some businesses, but I think survival is key. The only way businesses fail is when they run out of cash. So being focused on cash, which is king, is the most important thing. Get your strategy right, get your operations right, and get your finances right if you want to survive in the current period. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Daniela?
I'm going to go a bit off center and say, take care of your mental health and mental well-being, because it's really important. If you are not well, you're not going to be able to run your business successfully. And right now it is very scary times. It's quite stressful. Take some time out to make sure that you're looking after yourself, then implement all of the planning, the strategy, the situational analysis, the innovation, the systems and processes mapping. But it starts with making sure that you are looking after you first. That's what I would like to end with.
Yeah. Well-being first, of course. Dennis and Washington and Kanayo, your 1 minute summary.
Yeah, I think I've said pretty much what I wanted to say, but key thing is survival. And this is for the individual as much as it is for your business. So survival, and that takes your mental health side of things. It takes your business side of things, the running out of cash side of things. Then point number 2, review. Whatever you've been doing, if you were to start again under these current circumstances, what would you do differently? Would you still do the same things you used to do? And while you're in that zone, I would encourage everyone to be as optimistic, innovative, radical. Take advantage of all the opportunities that are available, but bearing in mind that we could be in this for a long haul.
Okay, and Washington and the Kanayo?
Right, I'll quickly say that I'll give an example of 2 particular ladies I know. One is a lady called Shanoshe, and another one is a lady called Mpwane. In this crisis, what they've done is one of them is going through a divorce. One of them is a professional lady. And in this crisis, they've learned how to trade. They're now in the middle of live transactions, and things are about to go well for them. What have they done? They've innovated. They've seen that they've got time on their hands to learn a new skill, because they don't know what the future presents. They don't know if what they were doing before is going to present security in the future. So my key takeaway to give to everyone now is that we all have, the whole world has enough time on their hands to figure out what they're going to be doing tomorrow. And your tomorrow is just going to be determined by what you decide to do today. So let's make the best of this opportunity. And I just want to send some condolences to all those that have lost their lives in this time. And we pray for everyone to stay safe.
Thank you. Kanayo, your last word?
Yep. So one word, innovation. So that's all I'm going to say. Innovate. 1, rethink your best customers. Who are your best customers? Who do you want to be doing business with? Rethink your value proposition. Rethink your delivery model. Rethink your distribution channels. Rethink your revenue streams. Rethink your core processes and activities. Rethink your key partners, and rethink your cost structure.
Yeah.
Those are the takeaways that I'll leave for the people in the call today. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we ran out. We've passed the 1 hour. It's been insightful and thought-provoking, and quite a lot of key takeaway highlighted. And I hope you find it the same. And you, for the audience, you've learned something that you can implement today to help you navigate the current challenges and be able to thrive as we recover from the challenges. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in our future webcast. And please sign up for the next one. It's every Tuesday, same time, 6 to 7 o'clock. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers all. Thank you. Bye-bye.